This video will run through advanced features translating in Alchemy Catalyst 2019. If you have not seen the Getting Started Translating with Alchemy 2019, I invite you to watch that video first, before continuing on. The columns in the Workspace area are completely configurable. They can be resized at will, and more columns are available by right-clicking on columns. For example, we can bring up the percentage match, which represents the percentage of a fuzzy match which has been applied. Those columns can be repositioned if you would like to bring it to the front, for example, and resized. So now we can have, for example, the percentage match associated with the translation status. Each columns can be sorted in ascending or descending order, and clicking on the column header itself also sorts. Clicking once or twice toggles between ascending or descending order. Just hovering over the icons shows you if it's currently in descending or increasing order. You can decide to remove columns by either right-clicking on it and hiding a column, or you can simply drag it down to discard it. If you wish to reinstate the original column order, you can right-click and select Reset Current String List Columns. By default, Catalyst sorts by parent type, as can be seen under Sort By. The parent type is this first column, so if you have decided to sort by translated or original you've changed and you just want to go back to the original sorting, just click on this button here on the header button and it sorts again by parent type. When sorting by original or translated, you can opt to make the sorting case sensitive, in which case the uppercase characters will be displayed first, followed by the lowercase characters. Or the other way around if you're sorting by decreasing order. You can turn it off again by selecting it case sensitive sorting in the right-click menu. When working with the duplicate filter, all strings are grouped by duplicate and a color coding of alternating blue and white is applied for each group. The sorting is automatically applied on the original column. You will notice that all the duplicates are grouped together, and there are certain characters which can be ignored or are ignored by default, and this is controlled here under the duplicate and inconsistent filters option. By default, the ampersand and case sensitivity are ignored. So if we look right here at the label cancel, which includes the ampersand sign and some without here, they are grouped together at present as the option is currently set to be ignored. If we deselect this option and scroll back down to the cancel, we will see that they are now grouped together with the ampersand, and then further down without the ampersand. The ability to revert translation coordinates or metadata is a particularly useful feature to both the localization engineer and translators alike. It can be achieved in different areas of the product. For instance, in the string list, you can right-click on the segment and select to revert either the text, which strips the segment from its translations, or you can opt to right-click and revert accessing further option with again the ability to revert the text or any associated metadata. Let's say, for example, here we simply want to remove the memo item, so we only select a memo and click OK. Now our memo has just been removed. If we apply the same principle and in the navigator window, we can right-click on the segment and apply revert. Let's first show the additional statuses that can be applied to resources. In this case, this file has been applied to priority items, and this one has simply been frozen. So for example, if I want to remove the frozen status, which stops me from translating this section, I can right-click, revert object, and select to remove the frozen item. Maybe I'll deselect the rest. The item is now unfrozen. I can start working with translating it. As always in Catalyst, you can multi-select strings and revert their translation in one go. Revert text. All those segments have now their translation stripped. If we look at a dialog box and we switch into visual view, we have further options available. Here we can right-click on a resource and opt to revert the text, which is a translation. We could also revert the coordinates. Now the original coordinates are reapplied to the button. Take into account that this dialog was made wider to facilitate the French translation, which are longer, in particular those two buttons, for example. Let's now revert both text and coordinates together and see the result of the button retracting to its original size and the translation stripped. Finally, we can resize text and coordinates on an entire resource by selecting it in the navigator window, right-clicking, selecting Revert Object. There, we now have the usual options, including the ability to revert the coordinates of the entire dialog, and we can go one step further and specify if we want to change the coordinates in location or size. Selecting all maybe and clicking OK will strip all translations and metadata from that particular dialog. Inline tags are objects which reflect specific localizable markup within segments. They are commonly found in HTML and XML files. The inline tags can be seen in the Translate to toolbar, and while in string mode can be seen in a string list. Note that by default Catalyst shows the inline tags in a string list. If you wish to not visualize them, go into the settings and disable display inline tags in string view. They are no longer displayed in the string list. Let's re-implement them for now. Inline tags can be repositioned within the segment. Let's take this segment for example and apply the translation from the translation memory, clicking on Alt Home. With the translation inserted, it is possible to then reposition those inline tags in the right place. Inline tags can also be selected and removed, deleted if necessary. If this is done by mistake and you need to reinstate them, simply click and drag from the source and reposition in the corresponding place in the translation. Furthermore, the opening tags can sometimes have attributes. This can be visualized by the little plus sign on the inline tag label. By right-clicking on this inline tag and selecting Edit Attributes, you can review the contents, and sometimes there may be some localized attributes within which can be edited right here. Inline tags can sometimes have quite long names. For example, here an inline tag from a Matcap project. In the Translate to toolbar, you can go into the Inline Tag Options menu, and by default it's always displaying the inline tags with their full names, in other words, long type format. If this is not suitable and takes a lot of space, you can switch to Short Tag, which uses the first letter of the tags to minimize the footprint of the inline tags within your localizable elements. You might find that quite useful when working on very complicated, full of inline tags segments. You can toggle from one to the other at any point. Also, inline tags by default in the Translate to toolbar are not displayed if they are found at extremities of the segment, meaning literally before the segment or are after. Here's an example here where we can see the inline tag in the string list, but we do not see it in the Translate to toolbar. This is because by default, again, we do not show the tags found at extremities. Simply click on this option to show them, and now they are reflected as you see it in the string list. In this particular case, even though we're not showing tags at extremities, we can see them in this segment. The reason is, even though the starting tag is indeed at the initial extremity of the segment, the closing tag is before the very last character found in the segment, therefore not at the extremity. And inline tags always are considered to be working in pairs unless they are self-closing tags. Here's an inline tag for which there is no text in the segment, therefore it doesn't display until we show tags at extremities. One last option with inline tags. You may want to add inline tags where there were none in the source text, in which case simply click anywhere in the segments where you want to add the inline tag and click to add them. For example, here let's add an HTML tag. It always adds a pair if relevant, and it's up to you to reposition it around the text that you need to bold.